beyond the range of the Northern Alliance forces. Certainly, the Northern Alliance forces, their commander, their key and pivotal commander, enemy number one of the Taliban, in fact, Ahmed Shah Massoud, attacked in a suicide attack on Sunday. Certainly, the Northern Alliance in a position right now to be feeling very, very aggrieved with the Taliban, and certainly very much in a mood for taking the battle to them on their terms. So looking across the city of Kabul now, it is very quiet, just dogs barking, the fire from the ammunition dump continuing to burn on the horizon. But evaluating everything we've seen here this evening, what we could have heard was some of Massoud's Northern Alliance jets flying in here. This is something that they do very occasionally. Certainly the Northern Alliance very aggrieved at this stage. And then detonations and anti-aircraft fire coming up at the same time. Again, from our vantage point here over the city, very difficult to tell those details, to tell whose aircraft they were, how many detonations there were, whether they were all missiles from aircraft. Details like that, very difficult to tell at night. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning here. We expect to get a clearer idea, perhaps as daylight comes upon the city in 3 or 4 hours. The Northern Alliance holds about 5% of the territory of Afghanistan. They've been holding out against the Taliban now for the last 5 years since the Taliban took control of this city, Kabul, in September 1996. Ahmed Shah Massoud, a key pivotal commander, he earned his military stripes, if you will, and earned the respect of many commanders in Afghanistan during the 1980 Soviet occupation. For 10 years, he held out and was undefeated against the Soviet Union forces here in Afghanistan during the 1980s. He was a pivotal commander, the defense minister of a power-sharing government here in the early 1990s, driven out by the Taliban in 1996. Has been fighting from the northeast of Afghanistan on an ever decreasingly small patch of land, and the assassination attempt on him at the weekend blamed by Massoud's forces. Yeah.
I need to interrupt you for just a second. CNN's Wolf Blitzer in Washington has been doing some reporting on the president's activities. Wolf, join us.
Thank you, Aaron. We've now been told by Ari Fleischer, the White House press secretary, telling the pool of reporters always accompanying the president on his way back to Washington, that the explosions that we heard in Kabul, Afghanistan, were not part of a U.S. retaliatory strike. Once again, repeating the explosions that Nick Robertson has just been reporting about in Kabul, not part of any U.S. military strike, clearly indicating this is part of the continuing civil war that's been underway in Afghanistan now for some time. The president is on his way back to Andrews Air Force Base right outside of Washington. We're told that Air Force One is expected to land in about 15 minutes. We're also told it's being flanked by 3 U.S. Air Force fighter jets, 2 F-15s, 1 F-16, a remarkable situation, a remarkable development. All of my years covering the White House, I don't remember ever Air Force One returning to Andrews Air Force Base with protective cover by fighter jets. The president, as you know, is expected to address the nation around 9 p.m. this evening. But before the president speaks, there are 2 briefings that we're standing by awaiting. First of all, the Attorney General John Ashcroft will be briefing at the White House, and the Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld will be briefing at the Pentagon. Of course, we will be bringing you all of those briefings live here on CNN. So just once again, to recap, the White House, through the press secretary, Ari Fleischer, insisting that those explosions in Kabul, Afghanistan, not the result of U.S. military action. Paula and Aaron in New York.
Well, thank you. It is a reminder to us here, to all of you as well, that we need to be careful about what we assume as we go on here. There are a lot of reasons why things happen. It's not always the first thing you think about. There are certain things we know that have happened, and we know that just after 8:45 this morning, 8:48, the first of the planes hit the Trade Center. It was shortly after that, 9:08 if memory serves me, and it's been a while now, that the second plane hit. We have seen this now from a couple of different views, and we have found one more to show you of the second hit of the Trade Center. People out with video cameras this morning, and if we can roll the tape and maybe take a look at it a couple of times as we orient ourselves, we're seeing it for the first time as well. There's the plane, you can't miss that.
Holy shit! Holy shit!
Well, it's hard to quarrel with the expletive. You know, we have seen this now. We have seen this, honestly, dozens of times, and it's no less powerful and no less sickening to see it again. Again, let's just look at this scene. This is amateur video, the plane coming, and now no words, no reason.
I think we all have struggled today with a way to define just the impact of what was witnessed here in New York. As you know, Aaron,
30 blocks away.
This is 30 blocks away. As you know, the city is in a state of paralysis at the moment, although I am told that some of the bridges now are beginning to be opened up for outbound traffic. But at a point in the city today when people were trying to be evacuated from the south end of New York City, it was extremely difficult. You were up here and I was down on the street watching tens of thousands of people making their way on foot to get out of the city. Now, one of the things that we've witnessed within the last hour was the collapse of Tower Number 7, which is part of the World Trade Center complex as well. As you know, Aaron, because you've been reporting this all day, this has been on fire most of the day. This was expected to happen.
47 stories, not nearly as big as the two towers which once stood behind us, but no small building with 47 stories.
Now, from what we're hearing on the street, rescue workers are still having a very difficult time getting into the perimeter area surrounding this site because of falling debris. City officials still cannot confirm for us at this point how many people have been injured, how many people have been killed. Just before I got on the air, I spoke with someone from the department that deals with rescue operations for the city. This is all speculation on his part, but he has reasonably good information from area hospitals. He suspects those numbers could rise into the thousands. So, Aaron, we're going to leave you right now, and we're going to check back in with Bill Hemmer, who joins us now from Atlanta with another part of the story. Bill?
Paula, Aaron, thank you. I'm Bill Hemmer, live in Atlanta, continuing CNN's coverage of America under attack. Some 9 hours now after terrorists hijacked airliners and crashed them into U.S. buildings. Some kind of attack, as we mentioned, was taking place in Afghanistan, but Wolf Blitzer was reporting there. As we see the videotape by way of video phone in Kabul, Afghanistan's capital, Ari Fleischer with the White House indicates this is not a retaliatory strike. However, this appears to be the ongoing civil war battle that's taking place in Afghanistan. Also, reporters traveling with President Bush have also been told these explosions, again, not part of that U.S. strike at any country at this time. Earlier, U.S. intelligence officials had told CNN there are good indications that persons linked to fugitive terrorist Osama bin Laden may be responsible for a number of terrorist attacks in the U.S. today. Bin Laden is suspected to be hiding out in Afghanistan, and earlier in Kabul, Afghanistan's foreign minister said his country does not allow Osama bin Laden to use Afghan territory to launch any attack on any government around the world. Now, the explosions again in Afghanistan come as we still await the first official estimates of the casualties on what has been a deadly day of terrorist attacks here in the U.S. Both towers of New York's World Trade Center and a section of the Pentagon were destroyed when hijacked airliners were deliberately crashed into buildings there. Rescue officials predict that hundreds, if not thousands, have died in today's attacks. One tower, the World Trade Center, was hit at 8:48 a.m. East Coast time this morning. Officials believe it was hit by an American Airlines Boeing 767 flying from Boston to L.A. The hijacked plane, Flight 11, had 81 passengers, 9 crew members, and 2 pilots on board. About 18 minutes later, as emergency crews were rushing to the scene, a second airliner flew into the other tower, the World Trade Center. Officials believe this hijacked plane was United Airlines Flight 175, again from Boston to L.A., with 56 passengers on board, 2 pilots, and 7 crew members. About 10 a.m. Eastern Time, the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed. By then, authorities had closed down the tunnels and bridges leading into the island of Manhattan, and the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, had ordered all U.S. airports closed. The North Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed at 10:29 a.m. New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, while not speculating on the final death toll, has told reporters it may be, quote, more than any of us can bear, end quote. Rescue crews still on the scene. A smaller building, part of the World Trade Center complex, collapsed this afternoon. That's building number 7, part of a larger complex connected to the World Trade Center. The National Guard mobilizing all troops in the New York City area, but New York's tragedy only part of that story. As we look at other parts of the country now, and specifically in Washington, D.C., I'm told Wolf Blitzer now with more information from our nation's capital. Wolf, what do you have for us now?
Bill, right now we're told that Air Force One has landed at nearby Andrews Air Force Base just outside of Washington in Maryland. The President's Air Force One being escorted in by 3 fighter jets, 2 F-15s, 1 F-16. Close by, very often there are some Air Force jets who go up to bring down, to help escort Air Force One down. But this time these planes, were told, the fighter jets were much closer to Air Force One. The President will be returning to the White House to address the nation later this evening around 9 p.m. Eastern. But in advance of that, several briefings were standing by. We're waiting for a congressional briefing that will occur, the congressional leadership, around 7:30 p.m. Eastern. There will be a briefing from the Attorney General, John Ashcroft, over at the White House. We're also standing by awaiting a briefing from the Defense Secretary, Donald Rumsfeld. Meanwhile, let's take a look back at some of the sights and sounds of this remarkable day of terror.
I hope I live. It's coming down on me. Here it comes. I'm getting behind a car. It's incredible. Okay, I'm gonna have to go find people who need help, because I don't think I'm one of them. You okay, sir? Okay. Can I just get a toot off your respirator? Can I get a toot? I'm just getting a couple of clean breaths. That's good. Okay. Back to you.
The Pentagon briefing is now underway. Here's the Defense Secretary, Donald Rumsfeld. Unfortunately, we're having some audio problems from the Defense Secretary. We're going to try to fix that. In the meantime, Orrin Hatch is standing by. Senator Hatch, you're a member of the Intelligence Committee. You're not surprised that the bombings that we heard about, the explosions in Kabul, were not the result of U.S. military action?
No, I'm not surprised, because just yesterday, and it looks like it's tied together, Osama bin Laden forces attacked Shah Massoud, who is their enemy in the north, and who is also one of the 12 tribal leaders.
Senator, I think we've fixed the audio with Secretary Rumsfeld at the Pentagon. He's briefing reporters. Let's listen.
Offering their sympathy and indeed their assistance in various ways. I'm very pleased to be joined here by Chairman Carl Levin and Senator John Warner. Senator Warner called earlier today and offered his support and was kind enough to come down and has been with us. We've very recently had a discussion with the President of the United States. Chairman Hugh Shelton has just landed from Europe. Secretary of the Army, Tom White, who has a responsibility for incidents like this, as executive agent for the Department of Defense, is also joining me. It's an indication that the United States government is functioning in the face of this terrible act against our country. I should add that the briefing here is taking place in the Pentagon. The Pentagon's functioning. It'll be in business tomorrow. I know the interest in casualty figures, and all I can say is